All right. We are outside. It's winter and there's snow on the ground, but it's warm today, and we're trying to have as much fun or as often as possible. So, Buddy and Grace is here too, aren't you? There she is. Just a shadow across the screen. Um, are going to join me in this video, and maybe even Tim. There's Tim. Yes. All right. Now, this is just the introduction to the table talk for episode 1, part C. And table talk this time is kind of interesting. And so, as we are moving away from me in the role of Game Master as facilitator of learning the system, as we move away from that toward me as just the GM running the game with reasonable expectations that the players will understand what their options are, and we'll be investigating the text to learn, deeper and richer options. As we move in that direction, then that frees me up to do evaluation. How well are we meeting the goals? How well are we, um, you know, interacting and connecting? Which, once I have made my evaluation, will inform, the questions that I ask the other players and that sort of stuff. So it's with the eye of an evaluator. Imagine that you are the game master, right? Imagine this is the table talk around your table, right? What would you make of it? And what would you say about it? What would you want the group to do about it, right? Just imagine that it's your group. You're a member of it. You are the game master in it, and you are where we are. And this is the conversation that you're having, right? So this I pose in the nature of learning. People say, well, you got to talk with the players. You've got to choose the right game. You've got to be part of the solution. I say these things. What do I mean by them, right? Well, I've been demonstrating that for a while, so it's time to turn that over to you, the viewer, right? What does it mean? What would you do? What can you do? What should you do? What should you not do, right? What is it up to you to do? And what is something that the group decides together, right? All these questions. What does it mean to evaluate your play? What does it mean to make decisions about that play? What does it mean to shake hands repeatedly? and, and what comes next? So, the table talk is occurring around your table about the game that you're a part of. What are you going to do? It's been repaired and prepared during your sleep time, and unfortunately,
Do you need to go and deal with barking?
my doorbell is ringing. So one moment,
Yes,
please.
of course. Right. Yes. Speaking of the red alert signal going whoop, whoop, whoop. That's our, yeah. Interesting.
Combat will be had. You can finally get into the ship rules. I actually have been having a very hard time cracking those rules, like, to be honest.
I'm not liking them. There's a couple of, not as like analytical game design. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting aspect to this system. Anthony will have to watch the recording to see this table talk, I'm afraid. But which is that it seems like there's a whole sector of Star Trek fandom which loves the idea of tactical prep, just loves the idea of okay, the shields do this much and the phasers do that much, so in these circumstances we're going to shift those values and see how much damage we take. And it's very much this Starfleet battles thing, and your preparedness, your engineering savvy about all this is heavily engaged.
yeah.
And you know what, I don't give a fuck. I really don't.
Shows.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
it's
back
hit or
in.
damage.
That's right. It's hit or damage. You know, it's a single roll, and that's your circumstance. And suck it up. And it's all about whether you can crawl through the tube or whether you can convince the recalcitrant officer, you know, to do something, or whether you'll find your feelings about the situation, which everybody's been hoping you could do for the last 15 minutes, right? And so, or punch whoever it is in the jaw and take a few hits yourself to cope with this situation, right? When you find the saboteur or whoever it is. And so this whole business of knowing all the capabilities of the starship and, you know, using little rules of this against that and stuff like that, I'm just kind of going, seriously? Did you even watch this show? You know, that's just threat. All that shit is just threat as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, something blew a hole in the ship. How do we know? There's 4 more threat. That's how we knew something blew a hole in the ship. We didn't have phasers firing against shields and see how much got through and all that fucking.
There'd be 4 less threat if I blew a hole in the ship.
Oh, I see. Well, you see my point.
Yeah.
Spend the threat to do that. Where anyway, I was talking about all the mechanics of ship management and
sure.
stuff. Go on.
It's cool stuff. All right, so the bridge doors open.
Okay, good enough.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no problem actually applying the barrage advantage to weapons fire. You know, photon spread.
It seems fair. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
okay, sounds good.
But they don't know that. The Orions don't know that. Yeah. So not Klingons at all.
Nah, good.
I'd rather not.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. Yeah, we've got plenty of. They've still got plenty of threat to hammer us with difficulty and stuff like that. So
there are a number of things that I'll be able to do to make them an interesting opponent.
Yeah,
they are a smaller ship, but as we laid out, the ship is going to perform like a larger ship.
Right. Goodness gracious, and I guess you could say what's the word I'm looking for? A hot rod Orion, right? They've hot rodded it. So
this is a hot rod Federation ship.
That's right. That's what. So this is great. This is like these sort of back alley Federation ships, right? You know, these 2 brawlers.
Right. So it should be a real knife fight. It should be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what it seems like. Exactly.
Oh.
So.
And seeing gonna enjoy the next session.
Mm-hmm.
Or better or worse.
So you might want, as Ensign Yang, you might want to take a look at things like evasive maneuvers and how that works. So you feel
another thing that's worth thinking about is bringing. I need to kind of look at these talenty things. I mean, constantly watching comes to mind in this case, as well as I'd like to actually challenge a value. I mean, I'm speculating about mechanics for the confrontation of we could be wrong. And the answer is not this time. Not anymore. No, we're not.
We're the only ones who are right.
When I get over we could be wrong, which we actually got kind of a look at with the artifact, right? Are we wrong to have this thing? Are we wrong to be doing what we're doing, right? We got to look at that, but now it's like, no, we're not. So that's actually challenging a value
could be
to do that. I kind of like that idea quite a bit, as a matter of fact. So those are just some of. I mean, I guess I was interested in turning away from all the dials and switches on ships and going into the characters' heads and saying it's time to start thinking about the mechanics that we have available for us from these rather meaty characters, right? Rather over purposed if we don't use them, right? If we don't draw on that. So Anthony,
also
are you table? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Casey.
I know. I'm also very curious why Anthony doesn't seem to have spent any threat in this session, given the mass, the mass
I
to be handed over to him.
I did spend threat. I increased the complication range
Yeah. Yeah.
on some important roles.
No, he's been using some things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the arrival of the attack of the Orions when it happens in its own
That's
scene.
when. Yeah.
in the
That's
next
where
session.
that's where we're going to discover just how nasty it is as he spends threat and makes it tougher and shit like that.
Yeah.
So, Anthony, did you want to chat a little about our game or our system and stuff
Yep,
like
I've
that?
got-
Things in your mind?
I have a few moments.
What are you seeing?
In terms of what? What prompts your question? Like, just in general, what's the first
I was
thing that
actually
comes to
kind
my
of
mind?
opening it up because we've got role playing, we've got structure for the episode, we've got. I mean, I'm finally, rightly or wrongly, feeling okay with a lot of the basic sort of cyclical mechanics of the game and how that, plays into the structure of scenes and stuff like that. So given that you're no longer holding our hands as much,
Right.
we're still asking you for options and stuff like that.
That's
but
fine.
given that you're no longer sort of, shepherding us through, what
The
do you
pilot was long enough, I think, as an
Yeah.
introduction to mechanics. We didn't need
Yeah.
to parse them out.
how do we
through
get
multiple
stress?
episodes. How? If you take an injury, it's represented as stress. And that's pretty much what the game has to say about stress, other than a lot of us feel totally free to assign stress as emotional punishment as well.
Right.
And it can
Right.
represent fatigue as well. So some extended tasks that where one role is hours, you would definitely consider adding stress. It's not a resource for the player to spend. Like I'll use stress to do something with
No,
my
I get
dice
that.
or whatever.
But what if I just feel like my character's stressed out and I'm thinking about,
Yeah, why is it called stress? Yeah.
well, no, not just that. I mean, I'm okay with it being called stress. I'm just saying, can I just say, okay, I feel like I'm stressed. I'm going to mark 2 stress, and it's gratuitously doing damage to yourself. Gratuitously. I just want to.
I suppose you could, and it would be really gratuitous because at the end of every scene, anything which is not technically an injury vanishes.
Right.
So you have a lot of leeway in applying, like if Mbuto, for example, had taken some damage from the console explosion,
Yes.
and if that had failed to reach the level that's qualified as an injury, which is taking 5 stress,
So say he took 4.
say it took 4, then we know that with Star Trek technology and blah blah
He'll
blah,
be fine next
in the
time
next
around.
scene he's
Right,
he's
right,
fine. So
right.
you really can, with a certain degree of impunity, hammer people with stress. We haven't had a scene where I
Right.
have felt that was necessary, so I haven't done it. If the argument or the problem with Ensign Yang in the mess hall had gone differently,
Right.
stress
Right.
was
You
coming
could have
his way.
taken
But
and
yeah.
yeah.
But
And if he took 6 stress from that, then we could interpret that as him literally being sort of emotionally scarred
right,
from
and
that.
requiring other characters to
Exactly.
heal him.
Requiring.
Yes.
Exactly. Time for a talk. Yeah.
So that's exactly where that was going. But he
Right.
just met it like a
Right.
10-ton truck. Just blew right through the attack, and the other guy took stress.
Or and just as long as I'm spitballing here, let's say that I had a shitty role in my work prep with the crew and stuff, and I might have ended up, say, taking even having a scuffle, with crew members during the course of
Yeah.
trying to cope with those phasers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, because that's at the very heart of
Oh, yeah.
Corsica's role on the ship.
Right.
And if that wasn't going well, then that is the sort of thing that undermines, right?
Right.
That's Kirk sitting with Bones questioning,
I've been looking forward to one of our. Do we ever get to sit with a little triangular Duke, the tri-D viewer, and have like one of these heart to hearts? That's what I want. That's when they sit in the little conference room and there's the little triangular viewer
yeah.
screen there, and
Right.
they're sitting around deciding like what the right thing to do is, and none of them agree.
Right. Oh, okay,
So
right.
yeah.
That will depend on
And
whether or not you agree.
mhm,
Yeah. But so
I always like those things.
you're now embroiled in a real political situation.
Oh yeah.
And the Avicenna has inserted itself to physically end Elysian spawned physical hostilities.
Right.
What did the Troyans want out of this? What's going on? Were they jamming signals?
Someone else's discussion. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But the problem
our
at hand is the Orion may be just as surprised as you are that
We'll
you're
see
here.
where our rolls get. Yeah, if we can actually just fire a few times and chase them off, that would be one thing. But if they decide that, hey, we've got our amped up tech, we're badasses, let's teach these bastards a lesson. Plus, we really want those dilithium crystals we were sniffing after, right? That's
Right.
Yeah, it seems. What I'm really hoping for. I mean, if we're looking ahead to next gen, which I try not to do, but if we were at least thinking about this and thinking about this sort of third season atmosphere of Klingons and Earthers sort of managing not to kill each other today, then the possibility that the Klingon and Federation actually managed to decide that Elas and Troyes, this is sort of the nexus of some kind of long-term agreement someday. We got to get along. We can't just keep fighting over dilithium crystals everywhere, for God's sake. We just can't. This is not working out.
Right.
All we're doing is losing our best captains, to best captains and best ships. This is not working.
Right. As Kur would say, you're blocking our expansion, you're choking our trade,
Yeah.
But you're killing people.
I quite like have you watched, Casey? Have you watched Errand of Mercy yet from the first season?
Yes, I did.
Oh man,
I skipped right
it's
there.
it's kind of like the I'm sure I need not go into my response whenever any moron says, but old science fiction's not political. And you're like,
Really?
do you even watch, bro? Do you even read? Oh, come on. So yeah, that's a good one. I mean, if you look at it, Course doesn't say anything remotely like evil, right? Like evil. He's just mirrored the Federation. He's like, you too.
Yeah.
I mean, he does set up laws like if you harm one Klingon, we're going to kill 1,000 of you. There are some things that are.
They're a little more ruthless, that's for sure. But the basics of what they're there for really isn't stated as just like for the evil.
Right. They're there for the territory.
They're there for this stuff, just like we
Another
are.
ha villains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although the actor does enjoy his little smirks and mustache play, but that's for sure. One can't fault him. Give him makeup like that. What are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting that the Klingons in that case, they don't have. I think it's the commander who has sort of the wicked eyebrows and stuff, but the Klingon look isn't nailed down in Errand of Mercy yet. Right. They mostly just look like people.
It was their first appearance, I believe.
Yes, it
believe
is.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they certainly didn't pay for the makeup for all the.
They don't have bushy
actors.
beards on everybody. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was all right. I like it, and I love the long-suffering Organians. I mean, they could
about
have
the captain. You can just see him like he's like, Captain, we're fine.
No
Go
one has died
away.
here for thousands of years.
Yeah, we're fine.
We find the presence of beings like yourself to be
Yeah.
distressing.
Captain, thank you so much. You understand you're a pain in the ass, right?
So it's an interesting approach to those beings, and
Well, I like the fact that they're a little more humanized. And one thing that, how many of these beings follow the stereotype of we are so abstract, but we know not of this thing you call love.
right.
Right? There's a couple of them in the first series. There's a couple, but they're not as common as I kind of remember them being.
Right.
I guess anything that was, taken energy form is probably
Right. Well,
of that
there's the
stereotype.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I
Way.
think you're right. But like the ones in Charlie X, they're just alien and they know it. They're just, you know,
Yeah.
or they're
But
nice enough to save a kid and they know that it's not working out. They just know it.
we do have a counterpoint when they discover the three eternal beings who are locked in their globes far beneath the
Oh,
surface.
Gamesters of Triskelion?
No, not that one.
Those are,
Not
no.
the brains, but they borrow
Oh,
Kirk's
that's
body and
right.
Spock's body,
Right.
and
Right.
and they're going to
Right.
they're going to construct android bodies to live in forever,
Right.
and
And then
Spock is playing the Tempter, and it's like, can you imagine, going through eternity without flesh, without the pleasures, and,
Wow.
it's fantastic.
no, no, I agree. I am also thinking of just how kind of how kind of there's not a whole lot of idealism about these energy dudes. One episode that I guess I like more than a lot of people is also in third season. Is There in Truth No Beauty? Which I've always actually thought that was a pretty thoughtful episode. It's got an energy dude in a box,
The Medusan,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a woman who's sort of his human interface, right?
Miranda.
Yes, and I mean she's not mind controlled. She doesn't embody him or anything, but she can. What
She can
God?
mind meld. She was trained
Right,
on
she can
Vulcan.
mind meld with him,
Yeah.
and you can't look at him because he'll drive you bonkers. He's too crazy / beautiful.
Hence the name Medusa. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course Spock looks because Vulcans have because he's so in control of himself.
There's a lot
you
of
may have
open-ended
noticed
questions
that
in that.
Spock's like a walking witch's brew of impulse, right? I mean, he's all you have to do is like poke him once with a drug, poke him once with a little bit of influence of any kind, and he's just off to the races with all of his passions. So
Yeah, that's an episode I quite like.
yeah,
And,
I thought it was more thought. I mean, it could have gone. It's kind of like Elan of Troyes goes south as an episode. I mean, it just kind of blithers, from its conflicts. They can't quite figure out what they're doing script wise. But the third season is weird, Casey. They had no budget. They had been canceled and then they were uncanceled. Desilu Studios actually got closed either just before or during that process. So they were actually bootlegging it out of a technically closed studio. A lot of the scripts are written by fans and amateurs because they aren't professionals and don't have to get paid, union wages.
Yeah.
So like The Empath was written by some college student that some scriptwriter knew.
Yeah.
So they clearly were just doing everything on the cheap and just using whatever script they could grab. Whoever wrote The Savage Curtain needs to get beaten with a stick.
Come on, there's millions of kids out there with fond memories of Spaceborn Abraham Lincoln.
I thought I was a kid at the time. I was a kid, at least on the first round of reruns in the early 70s. And I was like, that's fucking ridiculous.
Help me.
You know why?
Spock.
It's because they had like a Lincoln beard and top hat in the old costume chest. So they decided we need Abraham Lincoln, right? Who can we make him? Oh, look, we got an Abraham. Awesome. Stick him on there.
That reminds me of the episode I watched recently where the episode just opens with Sulu and I can't remember what was the other. I think it was Lindstrom, right in the middle of, I don't know, 1920s Western cowboy dresses.
Spectre of the Gun.
A strange episode, oddly.
Sulu's not in Spectre of the Gun.
No,
it was the one.
Yeah.
No, was the one where the whole planet, which they never showed, or they did show, but much later, the planet was the one controlling the inhabitants, and then there was that. The body, yeah, you're talking about the body.
Oh yeah, right. So it's not a Western in that sense of Spectre of the Gun. Yes.
Which episode are we talking about?
Return of the Archons.
Oh my god.
All right, yeah, that's
Yeah.
It was like, let's just put them in whatever costumes you could find and just put them there.
On the back
that's
lot.
right. They're in their little kind of Puritan costumes or whatever.
Yeah, let's just open the episode that way.
Yeah, that was the first. That was the one that introduces the Prime Directive.
Exactly.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. So
well.
that's why they're trying to quote fit in, right? They have to act. Yeah. They have to pretend that they're members of the culture badly, I might add. And it's. Yeah, I don't know. I hate that episode for multiple reasons. Simply because I think the Prime Directive is the dumbest thing ever. And I think my take is that some anthropology graduate student somehow got involved in the production of the show. And or they spitballed it from some science fiction short story or something, and it just writes them into a corner. I mean that they're forced to fuck it all up and then buzz off saying, "Oh well, there's protocols for when we don't follow the Prime Directive," and that's like, well, okay then, I guess that was easy.
On the Next Generation, I struggled in the.
Yeah, they latched onto it really hard, like we were talking about.
The original series,
yeah.
I mean,
it's invoked occasionally and lazily.
I don't know. I mean, it's in there more than you might think as background discussion, but I like that it gives added tension to, is this a problem that we have to solve? Or is this something that we have to stand back and let happen? It's kind of interesting that way, and
which I think was also the main conflict in A Little War of Mine, I believe.
The Private Little War. Yeah.
It's the idea is that they're subverting it. The Klingons are subverting it. But there's also, you see the whole thing in that episode that you're permitted to help, but you're by definition setting these two cultures at each other's throats, directly or indirectly, is already, kind of broken. It's sort of, the Prime Directive seems like very much a fig leaf in that episode, very hypocritical.
And
it wasn't brought in that one.
I like it in that episode for that reason. Yeah. The Federation does not come off very, very heroically in that episode.
A character like Kirk, with their, I don't know, moral certitude, right?
Yeah.
When he says, we got to keep our hands off this planet because of the Prime Directive, I don't know, at least as a kid anyway, I felt I respected that decision. And when he felt that he had to get down and violate it, and his trained officer said, yes, but what about this and what about that? And he's like, it doesn't matter. This evil that I'm seeing can't be allowed to continue for anybody anywhere in the galaxy. That resonates with me as a suckled on pulp heroics kind of guy. So I don't know. And it's problematic, and I don't think the show apologizes for.
No,
they
the
don't
show
say,
is fine with it that's what it's for.
yeah, like
The first season more often than not glories in, and yes, this is problematic. There you go, viewer. You're welcome.
yeah, you're supposed to think now.
You're supposed to think now. Yeah, exactly. Which is, and I just rewatched This Side of Paradise, which is surprisingly brutal in, yes, this thing. I mean, first of all, if the dudes on that colony are living through the rays, then why not just leave them there?
Yeah.
If they hadn't tried to like take over the ship, then there's no justification for just leaving them there in hippie paradise. And the fact that it, in a lot of ways, I mean, it's kind of shitty to, I mean, one almost wishes they'd left Spock there.
I was finally happy.
Yeah, leave him there, man. I mean, he's what good is it for him to be suffering, up here in his little repressions?
Yeah, but if they'd left him there, we never would have seen him communicating with whales in San Francisco.
I know, yes, I know.
So,
but anyway, I'm not talking about what I would have wanted as a viewer, what was good for the show.
but yeah, it would be difficult. Yeah.
The thought that's thrown into your lap just as a viewer, imagining that these characters have no presence at all except for this TV show that comes on once a week. That's
the image that sticks with me from that episode is Kirk alone on the Enterprise, surrounded.
Oh yeah,
by
that's a good one.
Those flowers, and still being sprayed by them, and they just don't matter.
Yeah. Well, actually, he does pack up though. He gets ready to go.
Well, it's, who wants to die in space?
Yeah. But and I sent, and upon rewatching that, I sent Anthony a text message or a Discord message. The admired Kirk suitcase, which is a modern Samsonite from 1966. Very high tech looking for the time.
Right.
You can just see the prop guy going, "That'll do. That's the future. Use
anything
that."
That's silver.
Yeah, exactly. It's matte black with chrome around the edges. Use that. It's not an old steamer trunk. Good enough. It's the future.
All right. Well, I got to close down. So, for those of you who'll be flying a starship next week, it would be helpful to me if you could take a look at the Flying the Starship section. For those of you who may end up shooting things,
I think I might have to take a peek. Yes.
Yeah. It's not the easiest section. It's scattered to hell and beyond, but read it in order and take notes and know that I'm with you in spirit.
Yeah, well, either that or I can always ping you for desperate assistance as well in between.
Because phasers are interesting. There's lots of things that you can do with them, such as we see in the show, and that's in the player's hands. And photon torpedoes are maybe less interesting in that regard, but they have a lot of dramatic weight.
Yeah, they do. When the Enterprise busts out the photon torpedoes, there's no going back. This is the
Yeah.
Isn't there a limited amount? Don't they run out of them at some point? That's our last torpedo, Captain, that kind of thing. Doesn't that happen here and there? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yay. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Have a good time.
Then we'll
Take care, everyone.
next time.
Okay, bye.